super happy to be here and see all of your faces, some new faces, some old faces to me, not in and of themselves. But yeah, super glad to be here. And those were beautiful devotions. There will be a little bit of overlap, which is great. We can like really absorb some of those quotes. But what Chris says is true. I have a new book that I actually compiled and I illustrated, and I will be sharing a lot about it today, but I actually did not write it. I had the best writers in all of existence. All of the quotes come from the sacred Baha'i writing. So they're all written by Baha'u'llah or Abdul Baha or the Bab, which was fun when I was like creating the ISBN number. I was like, who do I put as the author? Okay, Baha'u'llah, the Bab. Yeah, so it's called Noble Beings, and it's a spiritual handbook for children of all ages, which of course means all of us. We never outgrow our need for spiritual guidance. And so it's for all ages, and I definitely created it with two very distinct audiences in mind. It's definitely for Baha'is and for Baha'i parents who want to nurture a Baha'i identity in their children and help them memorize Baha'i quotes and stuff and prayers. But it's also very consciously for people of all faiths. I was purposeful to leave out any quotes that had like very specific faith jargon in it. Like there's no reference to the Holy Spirit or the Abha kingdom or anything that might cause some confusion or have some barriers for people. I really wanted to be faithful to that mission of a spiritual handbook. Like if this was the only spiritual nourishment that a child got in their upbringing, yet they really absorbed the principles and the lessons, that it would, kind of give them something for every phase of life, every situation, like a really nice overview of principles and passages and prayers to live by wherever people were coming from. And it's 39 very short passages, or I tried to keep them as short as possible, from the Baha'i writings. And what I'm going to do today is share some actual pages from the book and talk to you about like how I put it together and what the process was, and kind of break down some of the visuals, because they're very playful and they're very sweet, but they're pretty rich with symbolism too, because the goal was really to help children be able to see the visual and connect it with the quote, and like that help them understand and internalize the meaning. So I wanted to give them as many hints and tools as possible for that. But first, I just wanted to share with you a little bit like why I made it and where I was coming from. Those of you who have children, anyone who once was a child, you know that children are just such radiant spiritual powerhouses, like children just come equipped with love and trust and joy and acceptance and an ability to enjoy all aspects of life and be able to move from one emotion to the other very smoothly. And my journey, my spiritual and psychological journey has very much, been having to sort of reclaim those qualities as an adult. Somewhere along the way, it felt like, I lost some of them or lost touch with them, and had to sort of come back to that place. And I think most people can relate to that. It's sort of the journey of growing up as it stands. But my real deep hope is that this book and other things like it can really help children just harness all of that spiritual power that they have and mature with it, help them not have to lose it and refine it, but rather mature that into a spiritual strength in their adolescence and adulthood. So that's really like the big vision. And also it's relevant here that I was raised a Baha'i. I always hesitate to
Ouch.
say it quite that way, because like in the Baha'i faith, it's not an inherited faith. Just because your family's Baha'i doesn't automatically make you Baha'i. It's the Baha'i faith is meant to be owned and claimed for oneself when you're 15. But nonetheless, I was raised with exposure to the writings, and I've always loved the faith and identified myself as a Baha'i. But I noticed that when I was an adult, when I would make friends who found the faith as an adult and become a Baha'i, that there was part of me that was like jealous of them. Even though I had the bounty of growing up with the writings, I I was sort of jealous of their very like conscious, purposeful journey of falling in love with the faith on their own. And after sort of, realizing this and reflecting on it, I realized, the onus is really on me. No matter how many times I've read a prayer or a quote or a Baha'i book, there is inexhaustible meaning and potency in these writings. And it's on me to consciously look at it with freshness and openness and receptivity every time, you know? And that was kind of like very much connected with the process of putting together this book, because when I was setting out to illustrate a given quote, I really had to get like very specific about the meaning of the quote. And of course, there's like, as I said, like inexhaustible layers of meaning. And I don't pretend to either have understood that or illustrated that, but I have purposely illustrated like the basic meaning, the straightforward meaning of all these quotes. And I really had to like break it down and really think about, what is this saying literally and in a broad way? And how can I represent that visually for children so that it helps them understand the quote? And even beyond that, how can they internalize this and really like see themselves in the little characters that I've made who are embodying these quotes, and really put themselves in that character's shoes, so that when they need them, these quotes come to their mind. So that was the inspiration and the background of where I was coming from with this. And now, what I'd like to do is just jump into some of the slides and show you the work. And I'm going to go through 9 pages of the book and break down the images a little bit. And then we'll just open it up for questions and comments. Now, we did have this beautiful quote during the devotions. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and read it again, because I think it really gives us a really beautiful perspective on childhood and how the development of children really leads to the betterment of society. The children must be carefully trained to be most courteous and well-behaved. They must be constantly encouraged and made eager to gain all the summits of human accomplishment, so that from their earliest years, they will be taught to have high aims, to conduct themselves well, to be chaste, pure, and undefiled, and will learn to be of powerful resolve and firm of purpose in all things. And I just want to point out that, this doesn't talk about like guilt or fear or a list of, you musts, but constantly encouraged, to gain all the summits of human accomplishment. It's a very empowered way to help nurture a child to have high aims. Okay, next slide, please. Training in morals and good conduct is far more important than book learning. A child that is cleanly, agreeable, of good character, well-behaved, even though he be ignorant, is preferable to a child that is rude, unwashed, ill-natured, and yet becoming deeply versed in all the sciences and arts. The reason for this is that the child who conducts himself well, even though he be ignorant, is of benefit to others, while an ill-natured, ill-behaved child is corrupted and harmful to others, even though he be learned. Wait for it. Next slide. If, however, the child be trained to be both learned and good, the result is light upon light. Next slide. Children are even as a branch that is fresh and green. They will grow up in whatever way ye train them. Take the utmost care to give them high ideals and goals, so that once they come of age, they will cast their beams like brilliant candles on the world, and will not be defiled by lusts and passions in the way of animals, heedless and unaware, but instead will set their hearts on achieving everlasting honor and acquiring all the excellences of humankind. And of course, it doesn't take a whole lot of, scientific calculation to realize that, children are the future. And the wider the base of children that get the tools to be spiritually empowered, to live an ethical and meaningful life, that is the fastest and most lasting way to restructure society and, make the world a better place. So next slide is the cover of my book. You will see these radiant candles bursting forth. And some of you might recognize those kids it's actually the same children from my Humanity is One illustration. And they're sort of a subliminal message in there because they're still spelling out one with their figures. But the book is called Noble Beings, Spiritual Handbook for Children of All Ages. And all of the quotes come from the Baha'i writings. And again, you can see I really wanted to create something that was attractive to children and adults, and that was like vibrant and grabbing. Sometimes spirituality is presented sort of solemnly, and reverence and solemnity don't always have to be the same thing. The next slide, please. And again, it's very joyful. It kind of covers these topics of who we truly are, our spiritual nature, how to live, how to pray, how to treat others. And it's designed to help children grasp and memorize these lifelong gems of guidance and to rekindle childlike luminescence in grown-ups. So the next slide will show you how all of the illustrations start. I usually 90% of the time actually start with the quote and think, okay, how could I represent this visually? Either a child sort of meditating on this quote. This illustration ended up being about patience, having patience and trust in God. And so she's sitting on the stalk, feeling that blessed feeling of trust in God. But they all start by hand, and sometimes they're fully done by hand with like ink and watercolor and colored pencils. More often than not, I digitally color them after I've sort of found them and imbued them with soul by working on it by hand. So now I'm going to go through some of the actual pages from the book and break it down for you a little bit. So truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues. Now, this is page 1 of the book. Like, I knew I had to put something about truthfulness, and I had to put it on page 1. As this quote says, like, truthfulness is the beginning. It's the foundation of everything else in the spiritual path that we hope to practice or acquire or express. Other than the word foundation, this is not a particularly visual quote. You know, some of the Baha'i writings talk about, you know, trees and birds and summits and you know, it has like visual material, and this one didn't. And so I really reflected on like, how can I show truthfulness without showing its negation? You know, I didn't want to show truthfulness by showing lying. I wanted to like show it as straightforwardly as I could. So the first step was, okay, I want to remind children or teach them like what a foundation is, because that's really important. The foundation is the base level, the strong bottom level for anything else you want to build, so that it is stable and it is lasting. So my little character is at this construction site. I don't know, I think he's building his future, you know, he's building his character. That maybe it's his dream house too, but kind of the same thing. Like the way we live becomes the house that we live in. And so he's on a foundation. He's building something. You know, the work of a lifetime of acquiring virtues is hard work. It's gritty, it's sweaty, it's dusty, but he's so happy to be there, right? And his hand gesture is sort of my representation of him being truthful. Like he's testifying, he has his hand on his heart. He's like, you know, I cross my heart and swear this is true. And, you know, he's standing on this foundation.
Truthfulness.
Okay, I think someone might need to be on mute, or was someone trying to make a comment? I'm not sure. Someone just said something. Okay. So he's on this foundation of truthfulness, and you can see more in the book, perhaps, but some of his bricks have other virtues, right? These are the virtues that will be built on top of truthfulness, and some of them include love, justice, kindness, humility, friendship, hope. And, you know, one of the things that some of you have heard me talk about before, like the difference between art and propaganda, or just like advertising images, is that I'm back on. Okay. I don't mind keeping it on the images, but are you guys still on the images, or is it on my
Yeah, we're still on the images. Yeah.
Okay, good. For some reason I can see me, but so art is, I like to think of it, is when, you know, the creator, the artist, might set out with a specific vision of what they want to create, which obviously I did. There was a lot of thought behind this image, but we're like, that sort of spark of inspiration from who knows where comes through, and something is in the artwork that is even a surprise to the person who made it. And I just delight in the crane in the background. Like, my purpose for including that was just to show that this is a construction site. But now I see that in a way that represents the host of divine assistance. Like, we show up to do the labor, we show up willing to, you know, do the work, to be kind and to be truthful and etc. But there are these unseen, you know, more powerful forces behind us that are there to help us once we show up to do the work, you know? So I really love the symbolism in that I didn't even intend. So let's go ahead and go to the next quote. So this is another one, really rich in symbolism and kind of beyond even what I set out to do. So, let deeds, not words, be your adorning. So this is kind of elevated language, as a lot of the Baha'i writings are, an elevated way to express this idea, to let your actions be what define you rather than your words or what you profess to believe. So he is an action hero. That's what's going on here. And I love that he sort of has this expression almost of humility, like the knowledge of his own power and capacity makes him humble and brings him joy. And a level of meaning that wasn't even intentional. And, you know, adorning, you're adorning, it can be like a mantle or a robe, you know, like, and when I drew his cape, I just had in mind an action hero, but he also has an adorning based on his deeds instead of just his words. So we can go to the next one. So this is a very important quote, and again, one that I really had to think, how can I represent this visually? But I knew I wanted it to be in the book, because this is, you know, really the key to changing the world. If you desire with all your heart friendship with every race on earth, your thought, spiritual and positive, will spread. It will become the desire of others, growing stronger and stronger until it reaches the minds of all men. I did the bulk of these illustrations this summer. So of course there was like so much upheaval and so much, you know, focus on like how to resolve issues of racial prejudice and inequality. And, you know, I wanted to give my contribution, which was just to find something from the writings that really cuts to the heart of this issue. And, you know, if a whole generation of children grow up internalizing this, like, I think, you know, the world will be transformed in a one generation, you know. And to teach children the simple power of their own thoughts and intentions, and obviously, of course, how that manifests in their action. But, you know, the writings themselves right out state that our thoughts themselves are very powerful, and that rather than dissipating as they move away from our own being, that it actually grows stronger and stronger if we actually desire friendship with everyone. So like, how do I represent thoughts in a visual image? And I hope it doesn't look too much like, you know, Wi-Fi signals, but it's kind of the same thing, right? You're radiating something that is a connecting force. And all of these children, like, maybe they're different parts of the world, but they have this sense of love and connection that's binding them. And the next image is the same, just a little closer up to see their darling little faces. So there's all the children desiring friendship with every race on earth, and their thoughts and intentions growing stronger and stronger. And my little girl, my little blonde girl in the wheelchair, she's the only one in the book that has a disability that you can see. And I really wanted to be sure that, you know, every child could see themselves in this book in some way. And I just wanted to have her, you know, she's part of the pack, you know, like, I'm not trying to make a big deal out of it. She's there. She's as powerful and connected, and she's part of the group of friends here, desiring friendship. All right, next line. We had this quote in the devotions earlier. Regard man as a mine, rich in gems of inestimable value. Education can alone cause it to reveal its treasures. Again, a super important quote, and it does have some nice visuals, but I still workshopped this one a lot, possibly the most out of all of them. Like, how do I really express this? And the first thing I wanted to do was make it visually clear, just in case anyone didn't know, that man refers to mankind, men and women, not just men. So that's one reason why I have two characters. And to help children understand what a mine is, and then their gems, their treasures, and the gems inside of them are different. You know, when you excavate your own capacity, it's going to be different than other people's, but it is yours. It is your gift to the world, and it is this powerful source of value and light and contribution. And tried to represent them enjoying the process of education. So next one, please. So when a thought of war comes, oppose it by a stronger thought of peace. Now, this one really set me on an interesting path of reflection. Like, as I've told you, I grew up a Baha'i. I've done, Ruhi Book 1 a gazillion times. Like, I love this quote. I appreciate this quote. I understand it on, sort of a mental level. But when I really paused to think about like representing it visually, it's like, well, what is a thought of peace for me? Like, what does that feel like? Or what does that look like? And these are the conversations that I really hope parents will have with their children when they go through this book. Like, what is a thought of peace? So that you can have it in your back pocket when you have a thought of war or aggression. And is it the face of Abdul Baha or your grandfather? Or is it, the rustling leaves, in fall, or ripples on the surface water of the river? Or is it just a feeling? And can you kind of define that feeling so that you can summon it when you need it? Like having a defining, obviously with flexibility, but something to lean on, a thought of peace. And just for, my sense of aesthetics and stuff, a thought of war, well, she has combat boots on, and like she has this workout outfit, like she's a tough cookie. Oppose it by a stronger, and her with the weights, represented like an exercise of strength for me. And a thought of peace while she's on a magic carpet ride. She's floating in the clouds, and her thoughts are what are drawing her there. And of course, on her shirt, this sort of this universal image of like world peace, the dove and the world. So just, fun layers of meaning in all of the illustrations. So let's go to the next one. So this prayer is known as the remover of difficulties. It's a very common Baha'i prayer, and one that most children memorize at some point. So that was fun to, think, how do I represent this one visually? Is there any remover of difficulties save God? And save, of course, is like accept. Is there any remover of difficulties other than God? Say, praised be God, he is God. All are his servants, and all abide by his bidding. And this one, was the idea that came to me. I was actually taking a walk after rain one day, and I thought, oh, this is a really neat way to show both challenges, both difficulties, and God removing them. There were gray skies, and it was rainy, and now the sun's coming out and there's a rainbow, like the remover of difficulties. Next slide, please. Okay. This is one of the first illustrations that I made for the book. Oh God, my beloved, my heart's desire. And, I think if the hearts didn't give it away, the imagery probably reminds some of you of Romeo and Juliet, and that was very intentional, like how to represent this idea of our spiritual connection being our beloved, and channeling those feelings, that desire for connection and love and acceptance, to the only, for sure, source of that for us in our lives. And I hope in a way it's a bit of a very gentle paradigm shift too. If little girls will grow up looking at this and understanding that like God always and forever is their first beloved and the source of love and encouragement and acceptance that's always there for them for their whole life. So next quote, please. The betterment of the world can be accomplished through pure and goodly deeds. So this little guy, not only is he helping the old lady across the street, he is also carrying her groceries. And my mom asked me why I was so good at drawing old ladies. But one of the things that, I was purposeful in my illustrations. I don't want my children to look like materialistic. Like I don't want to overemphasize like fashion or, any sort of projection of affluence or anything like that. But I did want, in some cases at least, to bring some coolness to the idea of being spiritual and being oriented towards service of others. So this one is definitely like one of my coolest cats. I always have fun drawing them. And the sort of like creative impetus for this one was the Abbey Road album cover, but just reimagining it a little bit. But I definitely like looked at it and then drew this. So that was a little subliminal coolness in there. Okay, next one, please. And this is going to be our last one today. Never lose thy trust in God. And interestingly, this is one of the last ones that I did for the book. And this image and this character is the one that has kind of visited me post his creation. Like when I have had moments of fear and overwhelm and, I pray and close my eyes, I do sort of get, teased and delighted with this image coming to my mind of this character, like reminding me to never lose my trust. And, the symbolism here is, obviously he's having a good time, even though he might be, swung all over the place. And I'm sure it's like scary and he doesn't know what's happening, but he's holding on to that trust. And the Baha'i writings sometimes refer to like the chord of constancy. We have to actively hold on to hope and trust and belief and prayer. And he's doing that in a visual way, and he's having a great time. The next slide is a little closer up of his face because I love him so much. So that concludes the illustrations. The next one's just a joke and my public service announcement to please buy my book. And you can close the slides now. I also, so I'm selling the book on Indiegogo. It's like a crowdfunding to help cover. I'm just being transparent about my self-publishing costs, and that book orders help cover that. And also, very exciting, I have partnered loosely with this organization here in New Braunfels. The world headquarters are here, but they're in like 21 locations. And it's called Room Redux. And they go in and transform the bedrooms of children who have suffered some sort of abuse or trauma, violent, sexual, whatever it is. And as part of their healing, their rooms are transformed so that it's like a new space for them, and it feels safe and it's beautiful, like just to facilitate their healing. And this organization, again, the global headquarters are right in my hometown, but they're now listed as a resource for the FBI and they're like growing, and it's so amazing. And they're really excited about putting this book in the rooms of the children and giving it to the siblings, which is just like so amazing. They're not faith-based, they're definitely not Baha'i based, but they're super encouraging and excited about getting this book. So that's also an option on my Indiegogo. Like, you can have your books donated to them. Obviously, it's a really great cause. Yeah, so that concludes my prepared portion about this book. I'd love to know if there are any questions. I haven't really been watching the chat. If there are thoughts, questions, concerns, or anything more broadly about the Baha'i faith, I'm open.
Actually, you had people pretty engaged because there was only one jerk talking in the chat, which was me. Which was me. But I was noticing how lifting free weights on a flying carpet would be a great core workout. That'd be fantastic. Yeah,
Totally.
What are the questions, comments?
Congratulations on that project.
Thank you, April.
Really cool.
I know that what a massive output of energy it is.
Yeah, I like all the thought that went into it, and the hearing your thought process was really cool.
Good.
And how to make concrete these super abstract ideas. That's a great, I could see it being a lot of fun too. I could see the fun you had doing it, and trying to tease all these out and make it concrete in 2 dimensions.
Totally.
Was the little boy helping the grandma in socks and sandals the same one as the action hero? It looked like it might have been the same.
It could be. Maybe they're brothers. There are a few intentional repeats. So yeah, maybe he just changed his hairdo. Yeah. He grew it out. He's a little older.
Just grew it out and did the dreads. But maybe that was his action. Maybe that was the action that was foreshadowed earlier in the book.
That's right.
And did you do the lettering also?
I did.
That was cool. I like that lettering.
Thank you. It's kind of like, just my little love notes to these children, writing out the quote. This is what this one is for. Go ahead, please. I think it was Laura.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to read it to any children and had any reactions or?
Well, I have on YouTube. So I've been doing short, like just 1 or 2 pages at a time. And I get great feedback from grownups and adults. I don't have any children. So I have actually not read it in person, but I think it's been shared. And again, both kids and grownups, they've been enjoying it.
Oh, good.
My daughter has a question.
Yes.
How do you make a book?
What's that?
How do you make a book?
Oh gosh. Well, it starts with the idea, and then I draw it out, and then I have a company in California that actually prints it for me. So they do the printing and the binding, and that's kind of it in a nutshell. But it takes a long time.
Is there more than one book of those? So,
well, there's lots of the same book, so everyone can get a copy of the book, but it's all going to be the same book.
Okay. So all the books you make is the same book?
Right now. Maybe one day I'll turn it into like lots of like a series, but it's just the one book right now.
Okay.
We ordered it, so we'll
awesome.
Thank you. Yes, this is very lovely.
Oh, good. Thank you.
My
I want.
by the way.
What's that?
Wivel.
Say that.
My name's Waverly, by the way. And my name's Wivel.
So Waverly, and what's your name?
R-I-V-E-R.
River.
That's what's
River. Cool. Nice to meet you guys.
Bye. Bye-bye.
I wanted to comment on the lettering. The book, it's hardcover, it's hand lettered. Like, I had a very specific like aesthetic that I wanted, and that was part of the early inspiration too. I had been shopping once upon a time for a Yamaha gift for a 6-year-old, and there were lots of really nice things out there, but nothing like quite felt like what I was looking for. And I really, you know, the hardcover and stuff, like I wanted it to be dignified and substantial and almost like you could use it like a coffee table book. It's 8.5 by 8.5. It's not huge, but like it's this beautiful, you know, mantelpiece, and reverent, but like also just like super joyful, and that like someone who's, you know, of no particular faith could just open it to any page and it would literally make them smile. Like, I just really felt like we needed something like that in the canon of Baha'i books, so that people, you know, associate the writings with their own spontaneous smiles, you know?
All right, I'm going to put somebody on the spot, and I'm sorry, Jay Braden, I'm doing this to you, bro, but because you illustrate stuff as well, and
That's right.
I just kind of want to hear what your thoughts were when you saw her go through this process. Was there anything you thought about looked familiar, or you're like, oh yeah, I did that, or I should have done it like that?
Well, I thought it was great. I was planning to speak up eventually, so I'm happy to be called on. So congratulations, Jacqueline. I echo
Thank you.
April's congrats.
Thank
It was very, very cool. I related especially, I was going to say, I really loved what you said about the truthfulness illustration and the crane sort of like speaking to you after the fact about divine assistance that comes along. And I've had that experience too of like creating something and lots of thoughts going in and out as I was doing it. And then like after it's done and I've had a little space from it, like realizing, oh, this is this. And I hadn't really realized it consciously. It sounded like you had a similar experience with that. And that was very cool. And then I think I wasn't the only one like getting up close to read all the bricks and like see how you arrange those. that was cool as well.
Yeah.
And then the way he's like standing on the big rectangle that says truthfulness really, I think, underscores the concrete illustration of what could be an abstract sort of concept, especially for kids to kind of, you know, I didn't know about the faith when I was a kid. So I guess there's like my little kid self is trying to connect like some of these quotes.
All right, so Jay, when you
So
say
that-
concrete,
I know.
Yeah, no pun intended, right? But there you go.
nice.
Yeah, it's very cool to
What
see.
else?
Nabil, do you have a question? Oh wait, I think your
We can't
sound
hear
is
you.
working. Yeah.
That's because I double muted myself. Sorry.
Oh.
So yeah, Jacqueline, thank you. This is very beautiful book. Can you comment a little about your use of? I mean, you know, the printed book is like, you know, very old school technology, but you use YouTube as well, and you know, just like the mix of different media that you use for one specific project. I you know, I know that different things can be different, but you know, for this one project, how you've used different media.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's an amazing and strange day and age, right? Where we have so many tools and certain limitations and certain amazing ways of connecting people and creating things. I hope I answer your question, but yes, so book is fairly old-fashioned thing. I hope parents still buy them and use them. but I love books. And yeah, it's very traditional in certain ways. All of the illustrations start by hand, pencil and paper, super old school. My actual process of making them digital is as close to the old-fashioned way as possible. So I actually just take them onto my iPad Pro. So I have this like really big, like 12-inch iPad, and I have an Apple Pencil. So it's as close to what I'm already used to doing as I can. And that's how I color them. And then I have found that I have to start by hand for the children to have soul. It's the weirdest thing, but like they just don't have a soul if I do it all digitally. But so I always try to like retain some of the original hand drawn. And then at that point, it's a digital file. And what an amazing day and age. Like there's actually a lot of companies that produce books now. And I really wanted it done in the US and like just supporting craftsmen and local small business. And I used a company in California called You Build a Book, and they're like a mom and pop, but they also have a really cool way to upload files and build the book online. So again, like this is, you know, people sort of tell me like, oh, I wanted to write a children's book, but it was, you know, it was too complicated, whatever, 5, 10, 15 years ago. And it's like, now there are so many more resources that make it possible. Yeah, so they're printing it, and then I'm going to ship it, which is, you know, old fashioned. And as you pointed out, I do use YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, like all of these online ways to share the book, connect with people. I'm a one-woman operation and I'm not super techie. So, you know, even my videos, rarely are they edited. It's just like, hello, I'm here. But it's, you know, thanks to that, I mean, I've had books already that I'm shipping to like Norway and Australia, like people I don't know. I don't even know how they found me, but they did. And like, that's super cool, you know?
So you're doing your own distribution?
I am. At this point, it's just the most viable way to go about it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great to know you got international orders and everything. That's great.
Yeah. Thank you. I hope I charged enough for shipping. No, I'm happy about it. I'm excited about it. The further Mars, it would be cool to have it as far and wide as possible.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Quick question. Some of these children and stuff, like were any of them like children that you knew specifically, or were the composites of children you knew?
There's a mix. Most of them are just like purely from my head. Rarely do I even look at like a reference for the gesture or anything, because I'm confident that we're back to the screen share, I think, or I am anyway. But yes, Chris, I want you to know that he's not in the slide, but there is a character that is inspired by your son in the book. Back in 2017, Kathy said like, oh, you should take a look at my grandson. It's like a great like prototype character. So I did actually do one inspired by your child. Yeah,
that's the most grandma thing ever.
I know. But I did. He's like on page, I don't know, one of the early pages of the book.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I guess I had a few prototypes, but once I got going, and especially this summer when I did the bulk of it, I really just tried to represent as many different kinds of faces and characters as I could, and most of them were just, you know, from the impressions of my life and in my imagination. Yeah.
I think Chris was hoping he'd be in one of your.
Yeah. Maybe you'll have to find out.
actually, I do hope that all of the grown-ups will like go and like try to find a character that's most like they were when they were a kid. Find it and send me a picture.
Nice.
You'd have one really pale, skinny one with bags under his eyes. about 40 pounds. That would be me as a kid.
Were you a
Allergies.
towhead?
What's that?
Were you a towhead? Were you super blonde?
No, not really. Kind of just
No?
kind of brown.
Okay.
Mouse brown.
There's a few. There's a few. You look through and you find you, okay?
Yeah, that's right.
So this whole process of creating this book of stuff, how long did it take from the beginning of when you had a vision where you're like, I kind of want to do this, to the point of completion?
Yeah. Well, the vision was back in 2017. In February, I was shopping for a Yamaha gift, which is a Baha'i gift-giving celebration. And I didn't find, what I ended up doing was illustrating Blessed is the Spot, which some of you have seen. And that was kind of like the beginning of my illustrations. But I worked on it piecemeal over the years. Like I knew I wanted to do it. I had a clear vision. But in 2020, something crazy happened. And all of a sudden, two things became very clear: that we don't know what's around the corner. And I realized if something is important to me and I know that I want to do this, I'm going to have to do it now. Like there's who knows what next week is going to be like. And also I had to cancel all my other plans, and and I realized this is a really good time to hunker down and do the book. So I made that decision like in mid-May, like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I was like, next 2 months, I'm just going to like devote myself to the book. And it took more than that. Like it took more than just 2 months to finish the book. But making that decision did help, get to the point where at least I was able to complete it. Yeah.
Nice. And so like, what would be your advice if somebody is there thinking about doing something similar? Maybe not a children's book, but any kind of book. Like what would you, like what were some of the pitfalls that you ran into that you were like, man, if only somebody had told me?
Man, gosh, I mean, I'm glad no one did tell me, because it was a lot of work and it was probably harder than I thought that it was going to be. But I was already invested. Just, I mean, again, that there's probably never going to be a perfect time. And this applies to anything that is important to us in our lives. If you want to do something, you have to do it. And I've heard that a million times, and it kind of sounds like hackneyed and motivational speech mumbo jumbo, but like, it's really true. Like, if you want to do it, like, just decide you're going to do it. And again, I gave myself a timeline, and it took longer than that, but it was too late at that point. I had to keep going. And if anyone is like putting together a book like this, I definitely like could give advice. There are less expensive ways to do it, easier ways to do it with like Amazon, with their, direct printing and stuff. If it's not a book that has such strong aesthetics as mine. So there's lots of cool ways to get books out into the world these days. Yeah, I don't know if that's really, but just do it. It's the beginning. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you had the extra time to put this together. I know a lot of us have found we want pandemic hobbies and stuff where we put stuff together. Yeah.
This is my COVID baby.
Nice, exactly. Yeah. Wonderful. So what other questions are there?
Thought of another one if no one else has one.
Please.
I'm curious, Jacqueline, to hear more about your process with selecting the passages from the writings. Did you find some that you weren't planning to use, or did you even find some that you hadn't been familiar with before that ended up in the book?
Yeah, that's a great question. As kind of all of my answers here, it was a mix. You know, there were certain ones that I was sure early on, either because they're kind of like Baha'i children's staples, or they're ones that, you know, I found myself calling on in life and thinking, oh man, this, you know, this is really something that if I had been in the habit of calling on sooner, my life would have been smoother or happier or whatever. So a lot of it was geared towards that. Like, what are the fundamentals that would help a child, you know, lead a meaningful and happy life? Most of the quotes were kind of in me, and I just looked them up to verify like where the commas were, you know. I'm trying to think if any of them were like new to me. I really don't think so. Mostly it was quote first, but some of them was sort of principle first, like, oh, what's a good quote on race unity that I could use, you know? So there were a few where I came about it the other way. Some people might like find it like irreverent or something, but a lot of my like Baha'i books are like marked up, you know, with like a circle or a little doodle or something, you know, where I was like just reading a prayer and I got an image for how I could represent it.
Yeah, I know somebody who has like 2 copies of each book, one that they write their notes in, the other's like the clean copy for each book.
Smart.
But
That's
yeah.
smart. Yeah.
Excellent.
I think God likes the doodles.
What's that? Say it again.
I said, I think God likes the doodles.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
The dog ears and the underlines and the marginalia.
Yeah. I love that your dog walked in right when you said that.
That's what I was going to say.
I'm here.
Right on cue. Right?
Always she's part of every Zoom, I think.
Yeah. Actually, okay, raise your hand if you thought it was the awesomest thing that Vanessa's son asked for a cookie during the prayers. That was like, that's a highlight of my day. I was like, that is the best. I was like, that is awesome. That was fantastic. Like, I want a cookie. I was like,
It was the mention of milk in the reading. Yeah. Triggered.
It was fantastic. It was one of the best things. I was like, yes, we all want cookies.
Association.
Yes. Or is he still around, Vanessa?
I think so.
You're muted, Vanessa.
No. Still muted.
There we go.
There you
go.
So he started mopping. So we've moved on to the
Nice.
chores of the day. But
Oh,
Casey, you want to come say
nice.
hello? He had squirreled that away from Halloween. We got a freebie from the grocery pickup, and it was something I wouldn't have bought, and he put it in his toy refrigerator and brought it out.
Oh,
Say
really?
hello.
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 No, wait.
Hi.
I'm gonna go.
Cute. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming, Jacqueline. It was
Thanks for having me. And I just want to remind people you can order the book. There's links out there, and also have your books donated if you can afford, if that's something that you want to do, to Room Redux for the kids who are healing and moving on from trauma and abuse, to get this book of Baha'i quotes. So
that's a wonderful, wonderful service project. But thank you so much for all of this. This has been great. I actually just ordered my book while we were talking. Didn't have a chance to last time.
like, I gotta find the picture of my son.
There you go. Yeah, right. but yeah, so fantastic. That is
The real key to selling copies is customizing every picture. That's
right.
Children's parents.
Nice.
Right.
Nice.
You really be in the money.
Right. There you go. Actually, don't they have things like that? Didn't they have things? Oh, they used to do that in shopping malls. Remember? God, first of all, how old am I? I'm talking about shopping malls. Like, they'd have those like carts in the middle of the mall where you can get your own book made, I don't know if you remember that, and you could put your name in it.
No.
God, this is a late 80s, early 90s throwback. They used to do that thing. God, I feel so old now. But yeah, they used to do that. You could like get your own children's book made.
Cool.
with your name and
Wow.
stuff in it.
Mass
So,
customization.
yeah.
Early mass customization.
Right. And it, it's printed out in an inkjet printer, kind of thing. Like at the in the mall. Jeez, shopping mall. When's the last time has anyone been in a shopping mall? Like, I hadn't been in a shopping mall for like years before COVID. Now it's like there's no chance. It's pretty funny.
Yep.
But fantastic. So yeah. So April, you're up next week, right?
Yes, sir.
So we have two book authors, two weeks in a row.
Another week, another book.
Yes, you want to.
Cool.
Mine's only this much about the book. There's less than 5 minutes, I would say.
Nice.
That's book related, and the rest is just kind of, trying to make a larger point.
Okay.
What's that?
What's the book? What's the larger point?
Oh, well, the book is my a memoir that's coming out next week about my experience with a stroke, and the larger point is just about the title of the talk is Fortunately, Unfortunately, Fortunately. So it's a
nice.
Kind of a meditation on the twin processes of growth and decay, and what we can take away from 2020. The things that we've lost and the things that we could gain, and I relate that briefly to my my personal journey over the last couple of years.
Totally. Yeah. Cool.
Still working on it.
Look forward to it.
Still working on the deck.
That's awesome. Yeah, we all look forward to it. Fantastic.